Hello, welcome back to the channel. It is Dan, Nocturne Knives, coming at you today with a quick video talking about this knife, the Spyderco Shaman. This is the BladeHQ exclusive Spyderco Shaman in M4 blade steel and green canvas micarta handles. I am selling this knife, and I want to tell you why. I got this knife on the BladeHQ drop. I purchased it within the first minute and a half of the drop. I was interested and excited to pick it up. I'd never owned a Shaman. I'd handled them a few times and really enjoyed them when I'd handled them briefly. No doubt, it's a really cool knife. It's big, these contoured handles are awesome. The blade is it's big and epic, and the lines on this are really nice. The native kind of lines and design language always looks really nice and has really good ergonomics. So I was excited to get this. I got it as soon as it dropped and was really looking forward to it. And I got it, and honestly, I really liked it. You can watch my unboxing video, check that out from a few weeks ago. I'll link that up in the top right. Unboxed it and was like, dang, this thing's pretty cool. And it is a really cool knife, but it just has some issues with it that I couldn't move past. While I've got it here, I'll give you the overall length, looking at about just under 8.5 inches with just over 3.5 inches of blade, and just slightly over 3 inches of cutting edge. So I picked this knife up and enjoyed carrying it for a few days, but I just started to notice these issues that made me like it just less and less, until finally I was like, I don't like this as much as my Paramilitary 2s, and I don't think I ever will. So I decided to go ahead and sell it to one of my friends on Instagram, Puppy EDC. Put his name right here. I'll link him down in the description. Really cool young guy making EDC knife content. Super nice. Definitely go give him a follow on Instagram. Why am I selling this, and why don't I like it as much as the Paramilitary 2? So on the side of things I like, the ergonomics on this are awesome. This handle is astounding. It's such a nice ergonomic handle. These curves, they fill out your hand so well. It's bordering on a fixed blade level of comfort in hand with these big contoured handles. You can see the large radius and contouring here. So no sharp edges, no boxiness like you find on some Spydercos. So the ergonomics here are so nice. It has a generous choil up here. Feels really good to choke up. The lines on this and the handle are awesome. And then the action on this is actually really nice. The Spidey flick is great. The detent is pretty much perfect. I don't think the detent could be better for this type of knife. The spider flick is excellent. And then thumb flick, super easy. And it just flies out and makes this awesome thunk. I'll let you hear. It makes a really nice thunk, and you feel it kind of hop as the blade flies out. Action feels great. The detent is awesome. And then I also like that it's actually not huge. It's actually slightly shorter than a Paramilitary 2. So you can see if I have these lined up tip to tip here, the Paramilitary 2 is coming in just like an 1/8 inch longer. So it's kind of deceiving in that way that it's actually a little bit smaller than the PM2. You can see if I hold it like this, handle is coming up shorter. They're lined up straight at the top. Handle's coming in like an 1/8 quarter inch shorter. So it's kind of interesting in that way. You would think, and it really seems like it'd be a bigger knife, but it's not. It's pretty reasonable in length. And it's not too heavy, a bit over 5 ounces, but nothing insane. So a lot of things to like about this knife, but a lot of things that I personally do not like. So there's really these two dislikes that kind of turned me off of the knife. The first is the nub, the infamous nub. You've all heard about the Shaman nub. Comes around and gets into that compression lock area. So when you go to swing closed with your finger here on the compression lock, you can't do it all the way. I'm pushing on the blade right now, and it can't close because that nub goes up into the compression lock area. So if you want to close it one-handed like that, you have to get the timing just right to swing and get your finger out of the way. And it's kind of tricky to do. You can do it sometimes, and with more practice, I'm sure you get better, but it's just not consistent. Now, the thing you can do is just flick it here and then close. Flick it part way, and then close it, whatever. So you can absolutely do that, and that's a fine way to close it. That's all right, but the nub was just annoying enough that it was a turnoff for me for the knife. And then the other issue, which was even more annoying for me personally, was the jimping. So the jimping on this is just insanely sharp. It is so aggressive and sharp. That's like this, especially this up on the spine. It's just razor sharp, and there's no relief. There's no chamfer. There's no relief on it. Like, I mean, I'll rub my finger on it, and you can see here on my thumb, you can see that line down the middle. The jimping is just so sharp. It's almost cutting into your skin, and especially this top jimp has incredibly sharp corners. So when you go to manipulate it in your hand, you can catch this jimping, but the worst is when you go to put it in your pocket, because you put it in your pocket like this, and this jimping just rips at the inside of your pocket, and you can feel it catch and pull at the fabric in your pocket all the way into your pocket as you put it in. So the jimping on this is honestly, it's borderline, I don't know, unforgivable. I don't know if that's a reasonable thing to say about something on a knife, but majorly bad, significantly poorly done. I don't usually say that about Spydercos, and most Spydercos aren't deserving of the moniker very poorly done, but this jimping just sucks. Like, you can't let a knife leave with jimping that's like this. It is just so sharp and painful, and when you go to put your thumb on it, it's just digging and cutting into your thumb. I'll go and press down just like that. And you can see here on my thumb, the jimping is totally embedded in my thumb, and these edges are wildly sharp. And it's the same thing down here. Now, this jimping isn't quite as bad because you're obviously not pressing into it as much. So this is more okay, but it's still just really sharp, especially on the edges, and it doesn't need to be. Now, the normal Shaman has a stonewash on the blade, so I think the jimping is much less pronounced on a normal Shaman. But on this satin version, there's absolutely nothing to take down the jimping, and it's majorly bad. Like, Spyderco, you should not be letting your knives leave the factory with jimping that's placed like this and is this sharp. It just doesn't work. To carry this reasonably, in my opinion, it would have to be modded. You would have to mod this jimping, because if I carried this every day for a few weeks, I would rip holes in every single pair of my pants. On the inside, I'm confident I would. So I really, really hate the jimping. So now I'll talk. So that's what I dislike about this knife. That's what I really dislike. And now I'll talk about why I like the Paramilitary 2 more, and why that kind of makes me dislike this. Here are my two PM2s. This one on the bottom is the Smoky Mountain Kinfe Works exclusive in Arctic Storm Fat Carbon and M4 blade. Now, one of the reasons I got this Shaman was because I have loved this knife in the M4 blade. The M4 on this blade is absolutely killer. You can see a testing video and sharpening video I did a little while ago. I'll link that up in the top right again and in the description. But I put this M4 through the ringer, like banging it into stuff, really giving it some abuse, and it held up incredibly well. And in cutting, I cut up so much cardboard with this and a bunch of rope, and it just didn't dull. This blade just never went dull. And even when it's barely lost its bite, all it needed was a light touch on a strop, and it was back to as sharp as it came from factory, or nearly so. So the M4 on this is absolutely killer. I love the blade on this, and that made me excited to get this one. And then my other PM2, this is the Cutlery Shoppe exclusive Batwing, or Batman's knife, whatever you want to call it, informally known as the Batwing, but it's a Warney PM2. all blacked out. So black blade, black hardware, black liners, black clip. This one is sporting rock scale designs, hexy tie scales, a deep carry lynch clip in blacksmith finish, rock scale design backspacer. Oh, and this one has rock scale designs backspacer and Rips Garage Tech 3D milled clip in the something hex. I think this is the micro hex, or maybe it's the reverse hex. I can't remember. Anyway, awesome. Love all these mods. You can watch videos of me installing and talking about all these on my channel. I'll link those in the description if I remember. So yeah, this knife is awesome. And these two knives, I just like them so much more than the Shaman. At the end of the day, I like them a lot more. So first, they're so much nicer to carry. So the handle is actually slightly longer, but it's a lot thinner. You can see here, it's significantly thinner. And it's slightly less wide than the Shaman all the way through. At its max width, it's about the same. But back here, it doesn't have this blade hump. And the biggest thing is it doesn't have this stupid jimping here, especially this last jimp. This jimping is, I'm not going to say it's a whole lot less sharp, but it's so much less accessible. You don't have a spike poking out of the top of the blade as you're trying to shove it into your pocket. It goes in and out of pockets so much easier, and it's so much lighter. Like this, the Shaman is not insanely heavy, but the PM2 is coming in well under 4 ounces in its stock form. Like this one is coming in under 4 ounces, and that's really nice. And it's a difference you notice in pocket for sure. Now this version with the tie scales, I'm trying to remember how heavy it is. I want to say it's like 4.9 ounces. So getting closer to the Shaman, but still not as heavy. So in the carry in pocket, the overall size and the weight and the thickness is so much nicer on the PM2. It doesn't have the stupid jimp there that tears up the inside of your pocket. Much nicer to carry. And then the other reason I really like it, the next reason, is it's much nicer to manipulate. It's so much nicer to open and close. Now, I said the action on the Shaman was good, and I stand by that. The detent is awesome. When the blade flies out, it makes a great sound. But at the end of the day, it's not as easy to manipulate as the PM2, and there's no way around it. The PM2 blade is much lighter, so it flies open much easier. And then there's no nub. There's no detent nub. You can see the detent path totally, or the compression path totally clear. On this one, you have the nub up into that compression area. So on the PM2, you just stick your finger there and it closes, and that's it. And it can close all the way. Put my finger here, let it go, and it's closed. I don't have to do this stupid juggling thing to get my finger out of the way as the nub comes through. So the manipulation, opening, closing, all that kind of stuff is much nicer on the PM2, and it really makes me annoyed at the nub every time I pick up my PM2, and I'm like, oh, this is how it should be. That's right. So really, it's those kind of two reasons that just kill the Shaman for me in comparison to the PM2. I end up liking the PM2 so much more than the Shaman that I knew I just, in the long run, I would end up selling this because I just don't like it as much as my PM2s. And I really like these PM2s. They're nice in hand. Their straight ergonomics are not quite as nice as the Shaman, but they're good. And they carry so much better that it's worth it. It's a trade-off that I'm fine making. And the deployment, opening and closing is so much better than the Shaman that it just makes me enjoy these knives a lot more than this. So the Shaman is a good knife. And these problems could easily be modded away. All you need is a little bit of sandpaper or some files, and you could reduce this jimping by a lot and make it way better. Pretty much remove this last jimping almost entirely, but you could soften it up a lot. That'd be super easy to do. For this nub, all you need is a Dremel or a grinder or a file or anything like that, and you could easily remove the nub, and you would take care of these issues. But just the thickness and the size and just all that stuff combined, it makes me like the PM2s more. And I could do those mods but I was watching Nick Shabazz's review of the Shaman, trying to kind of get my thoughts about it in order really decide what I wanted to do with it. And I watched his video of him modding his BladeHQ exclusive version from a few years ago in G10, and he said something that was really interesting, kind of summed up what I have come to realize my feelings about this are. And it was something along the lines of, you may be tempted to mod a knife you don't like because you think you'll like it after you mod it, but sometimes that's just an attempt to make yourself like a knife that you really don't. And I think I was really tempted to do those mods on this, but I think that's where I was on this knife. A knife I don't really like that much, but I thought if I do those mods, then I like it a lot and I'll want to keep it. But I think even if I did those mods, I wouldn't like it as much as my PM2s. So those are my thoughts about this knife, the Spyderco Shaman BladeHQ exclusive. If you have this knife, or you have thoughts about your Shaman, maybe you have a regular Shaman with the stonewashed blade and the jimping is super nice on yours and you don't have any problems with it, I would love to hear your thoughts about the Shaman. Go drop a comment down below. While you're down there, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button if you like sharpening, knife content, all that kind of stuff. I would definitely appreciate it. That's all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.